Good morning. Today we're going to bring together mindfulness with a technique that comes from an area that's being explored more and more these days, known as the polyvagal theory, that has to do with, in some ways, feeling more safe and socially connected and open through some interesting reconsiderations of the fight, flight, relaxation response. And there's more that you can read or learn about by looking up Stephen Porges, the polyvagal theory, Stanley Rosenberg. It's a technique that he developed that I'm going to share with you, a very simple technique. I mention that so that you can follow up on your own. I'm not here really to provide you with expert guidance on this technique, although it's relatively straightforward and simple, and so I feel comfortable that I will be able to set you in motion to both learn the technique and also then to follow up if you're interested in learning more. Primarily, though, I'm interested in sharing with you how it is that being mindfully aware of the moments of our life connect up with, for example, a moment where you're doing a technique or an exercise as the one we're about to do together. It's a reminder that we can practice mindfulness to develop a more steady, stable attention, open and receptive to what's arising without being pulled away. And when we are, to be able to more readily return our attention where we choose. And so here we'll be doing an exercise or a technique where we would probably like to be here for the technique as we're doing it, rather than mind wandering and losing focus and just going through the motions. And you might imagine the benefits that flow from that, to actually be aware of and maintain a steady connection to what it is that we're doing, which, if it's a technique such as this or any exercise or technique, there's probably great value in terms of safety and to be able to develop and reinforce those skills by being present or more present while we're doing them. And this, of course, applies to so much of life, whether it's having a conversation with somebody or reading something or learning something or watching something or practicing something. And so I'm hopeful that in sharing this technique, and which may be valuable unto itself, that's why I'm sharing it, and exploring how it is that we can bring more awareness into the doing of this technique, we see more fully, perhaps, than we might, just how robust it is, what it means to be mindfully aware, and how the mindfulness practices are worthwhile to help us develop this capacity. All right, so a very brief statement of the instructions, followed by guiding it. In a moment, we're going to put our hands like this, creating a lattice with our fingers. We'll put our hands behind our head to support it. During this exercise, we will not be moving our head. Rather, we're stabilizing it with our hands placed where they are behind the head. We'll then move the eyes to the right for 30 seconds or so, back to center, and then to the left for 30 seconds or so, and then back to center. And I'll lightly guide this. I'll try to have moments of silence when we have our eyes where they're intended to go for those 30 seconds, so that we can then talk just briefly afterward about the exercise and then close with a very short guided mindfulness practice. All right, so we'll begin first by gently moving the head to the side, posture upright, and noticing the sensations of the head slowly turning. This is bringing a little bit more mindful awareness to our experience, to the technique. And you may notice that when you started moving, you may not have been as aware as you were when I reminded us all to be a little bit more aware. We're not straining, we're just gently moving and then coming back. Again, aware of the sensations of coming back. Moving to the left. Gentle again. We're not straining, we're not trying to force anything. We're noticing the sensations in the body. They are informing our movements, how far we move. gathering the information from the body. This would be a mindfulness piece brought to the beginnings of this technique. Now we bring up our hands, we cross our fingers like a lattice. We then place the hand gently, comfortably, the back of the head, and we're doing this to stabilize the head. We're not intending to move the head, although there might be a tendency when you move the eyes for the head to move. But when we move our eyes to the right, as we will in just a moment, it's not a forced movement. It's much like we move the head. We're going to be looking 45 degrees or a little bit more out in the direction that we're choosing, resting there for about 30 seconds. And so, eyes moving to the right. You might notice your elbow in the periphery, or if you're wearing glasses as I am, the rims of your glasses, and resting there. Eyes slowly returning to center. You might have noticed, as sometimes happens, a sigh or a swallow or a yawn. This is part of the physiological response that may accompany and can be useful. We now move our eyes to the left and do the same. And now coming back to center. You might be aware of the sensations building in the arms, the fingers, and so there's a gentle releasing. This is part of our mindfulness practice. The arms come down, the hands rest on our lap by our side, one in the other, and we close with a 1-minute lightly guided practice. Eyes open or looking down with a soft gaze, or closing the eyes, attending to the sensations of the body, perhaps starting with the head, shoulders, arms, fingers, as perhaps there's a little bit more going on there to notice, attend to as we breathe. And then attending to the sensations of the breath flowing through the body. Breathing. Aware. And when you're ready, in the next moment or two, lifting the gaze, opening the eyes. All right. Well, I hope you found that to be interesting, both in terms of learning a technique that you may want to follow up on so you can develop more knowledge about it and more specifics, and how it is that we brought mindfulness into that technique, and so it became in and of itself a mindfulness practice, and that is important because it creates a more fuller opportunity in the moments of our life to practice, and also we were more aware of what we were doing when we were moving the body, and therefore it became even more than a mindfulness practice. It was a period of being more mindfully aware, all wrapped around this technique that in and of itself can be useful. All right. I wish you well.